It is 6:30 and we are calling our regular meeting, the Elgin City Council, Tuesday, November the 15th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Do our roll call. We'll begin with Callahan.
Callahan here.
Rodriguez here.
Dennis here.
Frazier here. McShane here.
Kaznowski here.
Swain here.
Maldonado here.
Let us show that all members are present with the exception of Arthur Gibson, and we know that he's running a little late from work, so we expect to see him momentarily. Invocation? Whose turn is it? We don't know whose turn it is. Okay, bow our heads, please. Oh, Father in heaven, we thank you this day. We thank you for everything that we've received, our blessings, and even those challenges that we have. Thank you, Father, for guiding us through. Father in heaven, as we go into this meeting, please pray that we be on one accord and agree to disagree if that becomes the fact. And let us realize that we're doing this for the citizens and not for us. We bless pray that you bless all of the candidates over the world, those who have been elected to offices and those that still have the runoff. Lord, you know how it needs to be. And we pray that you will, as we leave from here, that you will continue to be with each and every one of us and return us home safely. In the sweet name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, first up, we have a public hearing on our ordinance annexing adjacent and contiguous territory to the city of Elgin, Texas, to wit, being a 10 acres of land tract or parcel of land situated out of the William Harvey Martin Survey, number 53, in Travis County Appraisal District 248221, including adjacent right-of-way and being fully described as Exhibit A attached here to providing for savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Let's remember when we have our public hearing, do we have anybody signed up? I don't have, no one signed up.
This is a voluntary annexation of a 10-acre tract west of the railhead development. Currently planned for residential development. It'll come in as R1 residential.
Okay, so no one wants to talk on that one. Number 2, public hearing on an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopted in Chapter 46, Section 46.3, revised Code of Ordinances, City of Elgin, Texas, 2013, and making this amendment a part of said official zoning map to rezone from R2 single family and garage apartment district to C2 general commercial district located on a parcel of land known by the Bastrop County Appraisal District as partial 12934 Smith JS Lot 86 acres, .602, being described in Exhibit A, attached hereto and providing a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. And I don't have anyone signed up for that.
This is a zoning change request by the owner. I forget the address, David, 318.
It's 518 South Avenue.
It's the convenience store that's there on Main Street, just past the Y intersection. The owner has requested a zoning change to convert the adjacent property to a parking lot to serve that convenience store.
Let it be noted that Arthur Gibson is here at 6:34.
Do you have, I've got a question.
question. Do you have any history about how these things went from residential to commercial? Like, how did that grocery store become commercial?
I don't. I mean, it's been that way for a long time. It may go back to when the town was originally zoned.
I say that because it just seems to be spot zoning, right? It's residential, residential, and then it seems to be commercial, and then back to residential.
Well, the purple there is C2, commercial. The blue is what's being requested for a zoning change. Right, David?
The purple is actually R2 zoning.
Yeah.
C2 zoning is to the south of it where the convenience store is at now, and industrial's across the street in blue.
Oh, I got my wrong shades of color there. So that purple, what I'm calling purple, the biggest colored area is residential,
Correct.
R2.
Is that the Mercado?
Yeah. I guess I'm just making an observation, because there's several churches around there, and just, anyways, just if this goes commercial, there, I don't know, just seems to be a lot of mix of zoning right around there, so.
I don't know how it got there. I lived there all my life and I still have.
Yeah.
But there was, but there, I don't know.
I mean,
I have no
I guess
clue.
I mean, I just say that because I think that when this goes commercial, I think we're likely to see a lot of those other properties along Main Street also go commercial. So my sense is that this is setting precedent for that, so.
Well, there's only 2 other vacant lots. All the rest of them are residential. There's houses there.
But this is a house and they're tearing it down to put a parking lot.
Way at the
All right,
back
I
of
thought
the
it was
lot.
the vacant lot next to it.
David, do you know
David,
the
is it
answer
the
to
vacant
that
lot next to
question?
it, or is it a house they're tearing down?
I believe there used to be a house there, and it's down now, and it's a
Oh, I was
vacant
about to
piece
say,
of
there's
land.
no house, yeah, I didn't think there was a house there anymore. Okay. Make sure I'm right, I'm gonna have to walk down the street. Okay, any other questions about this?
No.
Forrest?
Can I add to this, or do we need to wait till it's,
It's probably more appropriate we discuss it in
Okay.
new business, or for
Okay.
council. This is mainly for public comments.
Okay. No further public comments. All right, the third public hearing is on an ordinance amending chapter 32 signs revised code of ordinance City of Elgin, Texas, and modifying section 32-3, section 32 through 57, section 32 through 103, section 32 through 127, section 32 through 146, section 32 through 167, section 32 to 193, section 32 to 194, sections 32 through 215, through 32 to 21, section 32 to 25, section 32 to 67, section 32 to 298, sections 32 through 319, through 32 320, section 32 322, section 32 325, and section 32 331. And addition in its entirety of section 32 170, repealing all other ordinances and parts of the ordinance in conflict therewith and providing a savings clause. I don't have anybody on that one.
Mayor, this is a routine update of the sign code. As council is aware, the last few years, the staff has made recommended and council's adopted a variety of routine updates to various parts of the code that bring them into compliance with state law, with common practices by other communities, and in some cases to address existing concerns that we've run into periodically in enforcement of the sign code. So it's, I will share with the council that this is a routine update that is not time sensitive. Although the staff hadn't received any comments or questions or concerns expressed by anybody, the mayor and I discussed earlier today that she'd heard a couple concerns. So I guess I just want to say, if there's any, we're not really prepared tonight to have a really detailed conversation about it here in the council meeting, but if there are any concerns or questions or a desire to consider this further, we can certainly table this ordinance until we can get everybody's questions answered or allow for any input that way. But we're ready to proceed, but it's not, just want to make clear, it's not time sensitive. There's no project waiting on this ordinance to be adopted. So if we need more time to talk about it or if council consider it, we can certainly do that.
Okay, the next one. Public hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 44 Vegetation, Article 2 Landscaping, Division 1 Generally, and Division 3 Generally Requirements and Standards, and providing a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. I don't have any comment on those.
Similar to the prior issue, this is a routine update recommended by the staff based on some cleanup of the language. It's really procedural, but we actually think this lessens the landscaping requirements in some situations, but it too is a routine update. If we need to have a more expanded conversation, we can do that.
Okay, that closes our public hearing. Now we're open for public comment, and I don't have anything, but if anyone does have a public comment, remember that we allow you 3 minutes, and our secretary keeps account on that, and then when you hear the little beep or buzz or whatever she has, it's time to stop. Do we have any, Jennifer? No? No public comments. Okay, next we'll have the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to give a general update on our CO program as we continue to make great progress on these projects that were funded through our CO issue last year. I won't bother to read through all these, just wanted to give council an update that we continue to make real progress in all the meaningful projects. We're still, since July, you may have noticed that since July, we've been told by the provider that our big new generator was going to be here next month. And then the next month, it's supposed to come the next month, and so now we're in the latest next month that we're supposed to get it this month. So we're still hopeful it'll get delivered here before the end of November, but we're waiting on that. The Pistol Hill Water Tank project has finally moved forward with detailed engineering, and so we're hopeful that that project will go to bid in January, and we'll spend most of next year building that. These are the other projects, most of which are done. This was all driven by the first issue we made last year of almost $15 million. Then the second CO issue was more for general government projects. Everybody knows the County Line project is moving forward well. We hit a little bump with utility line relocation, but that's been completed, and so if the weather will hold up, we're moving forward in a meaningful way with the first phase of the first section of County Line Road. And our sidewalk projects are well underway, and hopefully those will be completed here in the next 30 days. The police station I'm going to talk about a little bit later in Veterans Park as well. And the Memorial Park restrooms are now open and complete. And we encourage anybody who's driving around, needs to use a restroom, drive down to Memorial Park and try them out. We're glad to have folks down there to use them. On the consent agenda, you may have noticed there's actually an item in there to authorize a contract for the acquisition of playground equipment for the Veterans Memorial Park project. We just wanted to talk about that in a little bit of detail here tonight to let council know. This is, I think council is very familiar with this project and very excited about it. We've got a lot of good feedback from it. It's the only project folks in town have actually done a fundraiser for. Nobody did a fundraiser for our sewer plant expansion, but they certainly are excited about the Veterans Park project. We've run into a little bit of an issue in that we're asking tonight for council's authorization to proceed with the ordering of the playground equipment that's planned for this project, because we're on, would you tell me, 36-week delay on receiving the equipment. So we're trying to get this project under construction in the spring and have it open in the summer. So if we're going to do that, we basically need to get this equipment ordered now. It's a significant expense. It's a big part of the park project. Typically, we would wait until the end, until we had the whole project designed and done and everybody signed off on, but we're recommending that we go ahead and get this order done in a timely way. We feel like the conceptual plans for the project have been seen and endorsed by the Parks Board and Council before, and everybody's excited about it, so I don't think it's much of a stretch to for us to go ahead and order this equipment now. But I was going to have Amy speak a little bit to the details. This is the latest, hot off the press, just got this week, preliminary kind of schematic design of the park, and so I'll let Amy fill in the details.
Great. Well, hello, everybody. Glad to be here with you this evening. So the playground equipment is going to be placed at the Avenue C end of the park. This is the 200 block that's across from the new police department that's going to be built, and it's directly adjacent to the first block of Veterans Park, which has the gazebo and the cannon and the memorial items. So this is an area that will have a bonded rubber mulch surfacing. The largest piece is a train that's reminiscent of our 1870s trains that first came through Elgin. There is a zip line that you can see in this figure. The train comes with multiple pieces of equipment. So while the train is the largest and certainly the most significant piece, it does have other smaller individual items that go with it. The train is large enough that the children can climb in the wheels. They'll be able to climb in on the back of the train, through the train. The entire train is the play sculpture, the playscape for the kids to enjoy. If we go back to that previous slide, then you have all these other elements that are in that same blue shaded area. So there's a carousel, swing combinations, we have balance beams and balancing posts, a wobble bridge, a seesaw, and then of course the zip line that I mentioned. Just on the 5th, we were celebrating Arbor Day at the Rec Center and sharing these park details with the community folks who came through. And all of the kids were really excited. And one little girl who's about 11 just made my day because she said, "Mom, it's a seesaw. We never get to have seesaws." So we have a lot of excitement. But yeah, so all these pieces are that package from Compan, and they fit in this overall, in that drawing. If we go back one more, that all goes in this end of the park. It's kind of that third by Avenue C. And of course, there'll be the safety fencing. There's a lot of additional pieces that come with doing this, but tonight you're looking at the play equipment from Compan.
This is veterans over here, right?
Yes,
And this is where the police station is up here.
yes.
So the train will be in a real prominent spot right there on the corner.
Mhm.
So as you saw in the legislation later, the total expense is right at $400,000 for all this equipment. And,
Yes.
and as we recognize, as I have to remind Amy over and over, there's $600,000 currently in the COs devoted to this project. They've already raised $30,000 from the fundraiser and another $40,000 from the grant from.
Well, we have a $50,000 grant from T-Mobile that is going to provide free Wi-Fi throughout the park. And then we have a pending grant with St. David's that we'll find out about in December. And then, of course, we are actively participating in fundraising efforts, and we'll be doing additional grant writing to help future elements of the park continue.
We, as council knows, this is a long-term plan, is 4 sections of the park. Block A is the one we're focused on now, and we're basically going to build everything we can with the money we have. And we believe that even if we're not successful in the other fundraising opportunities we have, that at a minimum, we'll be able to build this, we'll be able to put all the playground equipment in there. And we're certainly optimistic we're going to get funding from other sources to make the park even more robust. But this action tonight lets us proceed with that in a timely way. That's kind of been our pledge from the beginning, to try to make something happen quickly, and we're prepared to do that with this action tonight. So the resolution is actually part of the consent agenda, but if there's any questions about this part tonight, this part of it, we'd be glad to take those now.
One quick question. I have to ask, I know you're gonna tell me it's taken care of, but zip line, safety parts of it is taken care of?
Yes, absolutely. All of these elements are really, they're vetted through Compan as well as Studio 1619, and we have all the safety side of it covered.
Okay, that's good, thanks, Amy. I just wanted to, again, give a quick update tying to this, our discussion last time about the police station and our discussion about trying to, whether or not we wanted to add to this project to make it LEED certified or a green building. And as you recall, the council discussion was that I think the consensus among council was there was an interest in pursuing green building principles and goals, but given the fact that this project has gone over what we thought, we just wouldn't be able to afford it with this project. Now, these are the latest numbers. We anticipate coming back, hopefully we'll be coming back next month with the CMAR contract for council to approve. That'll have this not to exceed number right at $5 million for the project that we've talked about, that will be funded through the COs and through partial use of the ARPA funds. But council had asked for us to look a little further into the green building concept as our team had talked about a number of principles that are already being applied to the project, so that we could share with the public the fact that although we won't be going make a concentrated effort to get LEED certification, that what are we doing now with the project as planned that will adhere or be consistent with green building and sustainable design strategies. And so I've included in your packet a detailed report from the architect and CMAR team about the variety of elements that are already included in the project. All of these labels come directly from the LEED certification process. So some of them are fairly obvious by what they say, but others, if you need more detail about exactly what they mean. But once we went through the list of what we were already planning on doing, you can see that there's a number of principles related to green building and sustainable design that will already be part of this project. So we feel pretty good that while we'll know this particular project, we won't be able to rise to the level of formal LEED certification, that we still are building a building that will be in many ways truly a green building, and certainly a green building, following green building principles way beyond anything else the city's ever built in the past. So unless you had any questions, I just want to share that information. We kind of talked about it last time, and we're going to proceed as we discussed, but I think it was a good discussion for us to have, and we'll certainly have this information to share with folks that we're doing what we can and what we can afford with this project. Okay, if there aren't any questions or comments, I'll just keep going.
Can you remind me, are there electric charging stations be built as part of this?
Yes, that was one of the things that we plan on doing because frankly, as the chief and I've discussed, we plan on recommending in the future going to electric patrol vehicles in some cases. You're seeing that technology finally reach a point where you can actually use those for pursuit vehicles. So, yeah, the plan would be to have, at a minimum, have stations for our patrol vehicles. But we've also, due to this conversation, we've also talked about could we install a station that would be available for others to use as well.
But minimum, they'll be there for the.
At minimum for future police vehicles. Okay, then just a couple items to update on. Amy, you want to help me out with this one? So, as is with a lot of things, COVID set off and kind of changed the rhythm and routine of things. We went through a year or two where TRAPS wasn't meeting. The Texas Irrigation Park Society, who's come to know the city of Elgin quite well in recent years with the number of awards we've won, but we recently just got this notification that once again won an award for the Yard Bomb at the Park program. So,
Right, so last year was definitely a year of coming back to programming that we had implemented before the COVID, but also implementing new programming and expanding programming. And so the Yarn Bombing of the Park is an event that Elizabeth and Grace, primarily from our park staff, created in support of the Explore Elgin Arts and Culture event that was held in May. That event was also an expansion of an existing event that had been in place before the pandemic. As part of that, they invited the community to decorate the bollards at Elgin Memorial Park with any type of fiber design that they wanted. So you had knitting, crocheting, other types of fiber art. The entire community was invited to participate. It did not matter if you knew how to crochet or knit or work with fiber or not. In a partnership with the library, we did specific promotions, and the library offered all their self-guided books about learning how to crochet, etc. So we had really diverse participation. And for TRAPS, the Texas Recreation and Parks Society, this award is the Arts and Humanities Award for outstanding and innovative programs that promote culture, arts, and humanities in your community. And in addition to this event, it lasted for 30 days, probably more like 2 or 3 months by the time we promoted it and folks were building things, et cetera. But all the yarn bombing was in place for 30 days. And we now have a Primetime Knitters Club that is available to help you prepare for next year. If you don't crochet, et cetera, Elizabeth and the volunteers can get you connected so that you can do your own yarn bombing in 2023. But it's really outstanding project and a big credit to Elizabeth and her staff.
Agreed. Amy, wait a minute. Yeah, excellent work once again by Amy and Elizabeth. And, we done got culture in Elgin now, y'all. We're moving on. So then we just want to remind everybody we've got some big events coming up before we have another council meeting.
Yes, so you don't meet again before December 3rd, but it absolutely needs to be on your calendar. We will be dedicating the time capsule for the sesquicentennial on the 3rd at 1:50 p.m., pun intended. Encourage you to be here by 1:30. We're going to dedicate that time capsule in the Library Plaza here on Main Street. And the whole day is called Time to Shine, and we'll be celebrating from 11 a.m. to about 10 p.m. There's kids' activities from 11 to 5. We've got the time capsule at 1:50. Great partnership with our Chamber of Commerce for the hot cocoa stroll from 2 to 5. We'll have food trucks on site all day. The lighted parade with the volunteer fire department and the emergency services district is at 6. The live nativity from St. Peter's Lutheran Church is at 7 at Veterans Park. And then at 8 o'clock, you get to gather here at City Hall, and we will watch the Polar Express to cap off our holiday evening. So whether you come and do all of it or pick and choose some pieces, we've definitely got things in place for everybody. And it's going to be a grand sesquicentennial holiday celebration. If you need an application for the lighted parade, that's available at etx150.com. And really encourage you to consider lighting up something, whether it's yourself or a vehicle or a trailer, and come be part of the lighted parade. It'll start at Elgin Memorial Park and travel down Main Street through downtown in the historic downtown district.
Yeah, we're excited about the parade this year. I think everybody knows we had a little confusion the last couple of years with that, but we've, through Amy's leadership, we've formed a really good partnership this year with the fire department, ESD, and we're looking forward to the parade being even bigger and better this year. So, thanks, Amy.
Can I add that I would encourage the council to be there for the ceremony, the time capsule ceremony. We're wanting to have as many local dignitaries there as possible. Make it a great photo event and hopefully a media event. So if y'all can plan to be there with your sesquicentennial shirts on, that'd be great. There's great opportunity there.
Thank you. And then one more reminder of the event on New Year's Eve. Nothing new to report on that, Amy, so we'll give you final updates on that next month. So unless somebody had any questions for me, I hadn't mentioned it. That's my report, Mayor.
All righty. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, we have the consent agenda. And it has the City Council regular meeting minutes for October 25th, resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Copen, for train play sculpture and play equipment, and a resolution authorizing closure of Avenue B to vehicular traffic from Depot Street to Central, a resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing city manager to approve professional service fees with FGM Architects, which is for the police department station, and a resolution authorizing new utility systems manager position resulting from a reorganization of utilities division within Public Works Department. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. It's been moved and second that we accept the consent agenda, and we will begin with Dennis.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes. McShann, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes. Rodriguez, yes.
Approved unanimously. All righty. Next on our agenda is new business. And the first one's ordinance.
Do you want to read it again? You don't really have to.
I don't want to.
Okay. All right. Let me see, which one is this? Oh, the rezone PDD. This is rezoning of this land site that was annexed by the city 2 months ago, maybe, something like that. It's been under discussion for some time with the staff for a residential development in this area. The PDD, proposed PDD zoning includes a development agreement that I would just say is primarily focused on a couple things. It's allows for smaller lots for the developer, but includes a major investment in roadway for the city that'll be paid for by the developer. Just wanted to talk a little bit about our master planning and transportation plan in this area of town where we've seen a lot of development occur, and it will occur in the near future. The council has seen this map before, but I think because sometimes because we talk about these developments one at a time and they're approved one at a time, some may lose sight of the fact that the staff and the council are still looking at the big picture and how all these developments will fit and work together. And these two developments we're talking about tonight actually add to the master plan for major arterial and collector roads that are going to be built in this area as part of the development as it goes through. So just want to point out a couple things. Everybody knows where County Line Road and the County Line Road project, where the first half of it down to in front of the high school is being paid for by the developers in that area. And then the area from Knighting Elementary to Phase 2 to 290 is currently under planned development, but we believe will be paid for primarily by a grant we received. Then, of course, the FM 1100 is the plans for that improvement and widening of that roadway have already been developed by TxDOT. This is the one road that we need to begin to apply some pressure to TxDOT, but they've got that planned for and ready to be built. The city is making all of our plans, acquiring right-of-way all around this area to accommodate that roadway. We just need to get TxDOT to get that funded and underway. And then, of course, we've, in the past year, I suppose, we've connected the dots on what will be a parallel arterial roadway to County Line Road that'll run from Carson Road and Eagles Landing all the way down through Creeks Crossing to the new light at 290. Each section of that roadway will be built by the developer as each one of these projects develop. It's a 4-lane roadway that'll obviously carry a lot of traffic and relieve pressure off of County Line Road. And in addition to that, on the Larson track, it's another arterial roadway that'll provide some relief off 290. We'll cut through that property and make all the way to 95, eventually is the plan, and connect with an arterial collector road up into the Harvest Ridge development. Harvest Ridge then will also build a major 4-lane road in their development that presumably, as property develops between there and 95, will reach out and provide access between County Line Road and 95. And in this area right here is actually where a new elementary is planned in that location. So this road will help serve that school site as well. And then most recently, the Briarwood development, which the council approved, it includes a 4-lane collector road that'll run between County Line Road and our new north-south road that's parallel to 290, provide another alternative east-west roadway. And then the two projects we're looking at tonight, both Railhead and the Cano development, will also connect the dots on that road going through Briarwood, will extend through this Railhead development and the Cano Road and reach Klaus Lane there at the end. So what's really important to understand about all of these roadways, not only does it show a clear master plan for handling all the traffic that'll be generated, this picture alone probably shows 3,000 new homes that'll be in that area, but it not only shows the master plan we've put into effect that will provide relief for traffic in that area, but every one of these projects will either be built at the cost of the developer, built by the city, will be built by the developer themselves, or will be funded by grant funds. So we can say that all of that road planning, all of those road improvements are going to occur in this area with no direct cost to existing taxpayers or existing residents of Elgin. So I'm going to say that again. We've got a master plan in place, and this work, I want to say, is directly attributable to the work of the staff and our city engineer, having the foresight to plan these out, to have cooperation from these developers. And it's another issue that we often wonder, frankly, this is one of the trade-offs we get for allowing smaller lots out there. People talk about smaller lots, but by allowing the builders to build smaller lots, then they are willing. The trade-off is that they'll invest in these much bigger, much more robust roads and a road system for us. But again, we feel really good about having this system in place that will all be built by funds outside city taxpayers, outside the general fund. It's another reason why in this time of growth, we're still able to add services and keep our tax rate low. So enough of a speech about low taxes, I guess, but I just think that's important for folks to understand. In my experience, this is a rare occurrence, frankly, that usually there's a cost associated with the city to add this infrastructure, but in this case, because we've stuck with this bigger picture vision, as this property develops, the roads are going to come with it and will be built with the developments and not on the expense of existing taxpayers.
Can you remind me where the city limits are, or which developments are within the city limits? versus-
Well, as a result of tonight, the Cano development to this one right here, that I guess would be the westernmost city limits in this area. As you go down 290, if you know where Brixton is, when we approved the Brixton project, we literally had to get a release from Maynard, from their ETJ, to take in a corner, so that the far west corner of Brixton is exactly where their ETJ starts. Brixton's not in, but coming back. And so I'd say, of course, Eagles Landing is in, so the outer boundary of most of this, with the exception of Harvest Ridge, would be about where our city limits are in most cases. This tract here is in the city limits.
So, but all of this, Red, just remind me, they're all paying city taxes?
Except for Harvest Ridge, this development, then, yes. Is that right, Bo? David? Oh, and Briarwood is it? No, Briarwood's in city mud. So they'll pay city taxes still. That answer your question?
Well, so Harvest Ridge is the only one that doesn't pay city taxes like that.
Harvest Ridge is, yes, in this picture, yes. Harvest, the muds that are out of city muds in the city are Trinity Ranch, Harvest Ridge, and Brixton, if it
Okay,
ever
sorry,
develops.
thanks. Sometimes I have to be reminded about mud versus the PD.
That's right. Important thing to keep in mind with that is that frankly, I've said before, I don't know how it works, because those folks don't pay city taxes, but they'll pay a mud tax. And the mud tax for Harvest Ridge, for example, far exceeds the city property tax, so. I guess you saw that picture I sent you, that's how they afford all those fancy things out there.
I've got
So-
some great photos
so,
to show you from.
Again, the mud
Sunday.
helps, certainly helps, is a tool that helps the developer, but in every case I've ever been involved in, you don't pay city taxes, but the mud tax is always higher than the city tax, and they still have to pay county and school taxes, so I don't really know how it works, but it seems to work.
But the mud typically turn around and purchase city services or something, right?
Well, not in our, yeah, right. In our case, the sewer is all they get from us, and they basically pay all the costs associated with that themselves. But the individuals that live there will pay water and sewer rates too, so. But they're all over Texas, so I guess they work. So, just wanted to give you that bigger picture, but the railhead development, which is the item before us now, this is for the planned development district zoning, and let me jump back to the other picture. As you can see, this is a better picture of it. As you can see, this arterial road that'll run right through the middle of the development will connect here through Briarwood that goes to County Line Road, and then this K&O development will get to Klaus Lane. And obviously, for them, it was key that with just the one access point off 1100, it was going to make this development problematic, but now that they've achieved those other two access points, we feel comfortable recommending this zoning change.
And when will the arterials go in versus the 1100 access?
They'll go in as the development builds. The developer in each case is responsible for building, so again, I You know, they're gonna try to get lots on the ground first. I don't know, Bo, if you wanna speak to that, but you gotta come up here if you're gonna speak. I would assume that in this case, the developer's gonna start out here and build back and get some lots on the ground till he gets to here.
Just for accessibility standpoint, because you really can't start on Klaus Lane because Cano hasn't been built yet. And if that's annexed in, that'd be city infrastructure, so that'd have to be built. Creeks Crossing is the other connection, which they're gonna break ground, but that's actually their second phase, or phase 2 and 3. So that might not be ready assuming that they were ready to break ground. And then Briarwood is just now getting started. So most likely, if this subdivision was starting the same time as the other 4, they'll probably come in off of FM 1100, because that's gonna be their main entrance essentially there. And they're not gonna have an impediment of waiting for another developer to finish the roadway. So we can't force along the other developments to tie into another development. So the one access they can control immediately would be off of FM 1100.
But when we look at Briarwood and some of these others, this will be the main access on this road, right?
Yes.
We think
So-
that'll get built early on in the development of those properties.
Creeks Crossing, that is part of it, is that major arterial all the way through as part of their first phase. That ties into Westward Sky there at Westwind. And so we're pushing, Briarwood is just now submitting, and so we're trying to push to make sure that that arterial is still getting built. Same time, infrastructure getting built, you want people to be able to use the road right away too. You don't want it to get built and just sit there and then no cars get on it, because it'll start to fail from an engineering standpoint. That's not the best infrastructure to put there too, so it's a little bit of a timing game.
So is Eagles Landing and Homestead already building arterial?
Eagles Landing has been approved by council, phase 5. They are currently building homes in phase 2 and have recently submitted construction plans on phase 3 and 4, but they have not submitted anything on that phase 5 that has that roadway yet.
Homestead?
Homestead right now is still negotiating on some properties and stuff like that, but they have not formally submitted. But through all the conversations, at this point in time, you have the arterial set up on both ways. So whoever develops that property, that's ultimately where that roadway would go.
And the road that goes to the lots that aren't red?
That's that property under conversations.
The one that is the side of 1100?
Yeah.
The Creeks Crossing arterial road, this little blue road right there cutting through Railhead and Briarwood, is there a reason that's not meeting together?
They will. It's just kind of laid out. There's still some moving pieces in there, but when everybody submits, it'll be more of a straight shot. It'll be a 4-way intersection there.
I didn't want to turn into a county line road there.
I'm curious what you guys have heard from developers, given the interest rate hikes, and a lot of these are new, first-time home buyers. Is that how that is gonna affect these developments and the sales of homes?
Well, I had one developer just last week tell me, that since the housing market has collapsed, well, I don't think it's collapsed. I think the interest rate's gone up a little bit. And so I think we have a situation now where you've got builders used to building 50 homes a month, and now they're down to only building 25 or 30. And we're still gonna see that happen. I know Braun Homes talked to us about, they're actively involved in Harvest Ridge because they're the builder and the developer. They've developed programs to help buyers buy down the interest rate. So there are things changing that way. I think, again, some of the projects, and again, that's when conversation about when will full build-out be it's an example. It's still gonna be driven by the market and how that works. So we're hearing people being a little more cautious, but we don't see really any delay in the projects that are, certainly the ones that are on the ground are planning and moving forward, like Bo said.
One more question, because I forgot. 1100, was that going to be a expansion, going to be a 3-lane or a 4-lane road?
I can speak to the portion from County Line to 95. That would be just like what County Line's being designed. So 4-lane with median protected access, left-hand turn lanes all the way down. What TxDOT will end up doing for FM 1100 heading west from County Line Road is still kind of up in the air. But as those developments have come along, we've been making sure that they dedicate right-of-way so that doesn't become an issue, to give as much right-of-way as we can to TxDOT for that expansion there.
Thanks, Bill. So, I don't guess we haven't really anything to add about this particular action item for the zoning change. Just wanted you to be aware of how it fits in the big picture out there.
Any other questions about this one or discussion?
Yeah, and maybe you guys can explain it, the commercial piece.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I had a hard time understanding what was allowed and what was not allowed in that piece with the attachments. Anything?
David, you want to speak to that?
Allow for commercial-related uses. Believe the PDD ordinance says C2 uses. C1. So that's our neighborhood, the C1 zoning itself is our lowest level of commercial zoning, so it'd be the most compatible with residential. So you'd get uses like restaurant, retail, professional offices, that sort of thing. That's allowed under the C1.
Sorry, I can't find it, but
Thank you.
I trust what you're saying.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, the Haven across the street from me is C1.
I think it's C2. Thanks.
That's what we need, another one of those.
The reason I was saying C2, a lot of our city is C2 and C3 zone. There's not that much C1 in our city, actually. Just to let you guys know that.
Okay, so on the first one, do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Okay, I hear a second. Callahan, second. All right, we'll begin with Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes. McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next one's ordinance annexing adjacent and contiguous territory, and take it away.
Thank you. This is the item that, this is the second track. We were just discussing what we're calling the Cano track. That is just a small 10-acre tract immediately west of the Railhead development. The request here, this action tonight is to simply annex the property. The current plans are for it to annex and build conventional development under R1 residential, where that's where all property comes in automatically with R1 zoning. So there's no development agreement currently on this project, or plans haven't been submitted, but that's what we've been told by the owner of the plan is.
Any question or discussion?
So you said it's voluntary annexation, right?
It's voluntary annexation. They won't let us do it any other way, Chuck. Yeah, that's the only way we can do it now.
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Have a second? Callahan, second? And we'll begin with Frazier.
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to the third one, an ordinance assigning newly annexed property to the city.
Excuse me, just before we move too far away from all this development stuff, can you tell me who is pushing dirt out there on 290?
Yes, that's the Poth track that, I don't know if it shows on this map. Of who? Oh, it's the Poth track. You remember there's like between Elm Creek and Brixton, there was like a triangular piece right on the highway. That's who's building that. And it's a piece of property that's in the city limits that we annexed. It's the one where the agreement we made with the developer was they could build residential at the back if they reserved the frontage for commercial. And it's basically the same builder-developer that's doing Elm Creek, so I think for all practical purposes, once it's all done, it may not look different on the ground, but technically that piece will be in the city limits, whereas Elm Creek is
So
not.
none of that is Brixton yet?
No, Brixton has not started yet. None of that's Brixton, and none of it's commercial. They're just building the residential houses right now.
Okay, so have a number three.
Number three is the routine item to the 10 acres we just annexed to add it to Council Ward number 2. Even though I don't think there's any voters on it right now. So.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we accept that.
Okay, do I?
I'll second it.
Okay, would be Callahan.
Callahan, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes?
Maldonado, yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, number 4 is ordinance amending official zoning map of the city of Elgin.
Oh, this is the convenience store lot that we talked about earlier in the public hearing. This is the site plan, the concept plan that was submitted with the application. There were a handful of residents neighboring residents that appeared before the planning commission. I think, David, they basically, many of them had concerns about the request.
They voiced some concerns at the hearing. There were about, I'd say, 8 to 10 that showed up and about 4 of them that spoke. And those 4 had some concerns in regards to it. So yes.
But the plan commission ultimately recommended
And
approval.
approval unanimously, yes.
What exactly were their concerns?
Noise, like trash or debris on property, lighting, that sort of thing, issues that really can't be addressed through a rezoning process, so to speak. Yes.
Did they discuss what kind of noise? Or they just said noise?
Just noise from the actual, I think somebody said something in regards to noise from, like, when they're out on the back of the business, that sort of thing. Maybe when employees take breaks, they
Trash
talk
or
loud,
whatever.
that sort of
Oh.
thing, yeah. Thank you.
Wouldn't they already have it down? I've never heard anything from right down the street.
Okay, any discussion?
I would just say that I don't know much about it myself personally, but we have heard that there is certainly on the weekends a parking challenge there with having adequate parking, and I think that's what the owner's trying to address here.
Yeah, that I would agree with.
I was gonna say earlier, to add to that conversation, that this is more than just convenience store, it's a grocery store. It
Yeah,
would serve that
it's a grocery
community
store.
until the what comes,
Mhm.
right? And so they're, it's a full-on grocery store, and I've been in there and shopped there, except that getting in and out of the parking lot is crazy.
That's right.
And, you know, to expand that parking lot, I think it's going to relieve some in and out issues that we have on
Absolutely, absolutely.
Notwithstanding councilperson's concerns.
Yeah.
Takes out that intersection at 109, and a little more speedier traffic in there, I would imagine.
Well, we won't take our breath on Thursday.
I guess my
Try to
question
fix
is,
it when we can.
what is precluding us from changing all of the zoning on that street to commercial? Because my concern is when we say yes to this commercial, all of that pink, that is all residential, except for I see 3 red squares. And so then another red square goes commercial, and then another one, and then we've got, we now are gonna have spot zoning around there. And I just, seems like it would be better to comprehensively say this is going to change all at once to a certain kind of zoning, as opposed to cherry picking what gets to change, and then we have neighbors who are concerned that, light pollution and noise and all that sort of thing. I see the writing on the wall that this is gonna go commercial, and, but I don't love the idea of doing each one individually.
But you have houses on some, and so that's residential. And so, as far as I understand, if it's residential, it can't be commercial.
That's what
So
it is
I
right
get
now,
what
they're
you're
asking,
saying.
they're asking for it to be commercial.
Yeah, but you're talking about
There's
the
no
whole-
house there, though.
There's not there, but all of those are houses all around there.
Right.
Yeah, so we can't change it
So
to
there's nothing
commercial
else to be
now.
commercial. Right, yeah.
But the neighbors can. All of the pink around there is residential. So you're turning the one with the hash blue into commercial, but everything else around there is residential. So I'm saying you're introducing more commercial to a heavily residential area.
Which will probably stay residential because there's nowhere else to make it commercial.
Well, what if,
Because
Mayor,
right
you live
next
down
to
the
it-
street, what if you want to put yours into commercial?
I'm not changing my
Well,
house, trust.
I'm just saying, like, I can see it just, kind of,
If there were a lot of land around that could be bought to do that, I would say, yeah. But, I mean, we're talking about there's a church, and then there's a house that I own, and then it's my house. So, and going the other way, it's a house and it's a church. So there's not, and then back on the Avenue D, unless somebody comes and buys all of those houses out, it's not gonna, there's not
As long as
anything back
somebody
there.
lives there, we
Yeah.
can't turn it commercial.
no, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, for those folks who came to the planning commission to speak about it, my assumption is all of those people live around there and are not necessarily wanting to have more commercial in their backyard. So I think it's a consideration to think about with spot, I would call it again, spot zoning.
Well, we want to say for the record, it's not spot zoning, because of course that's against the law, spot zoning, so.
Well, what do
I
you
don't
call those
believe it
red
is.
spots then?
Well, it's an accommodating use to the existing zoning. I would say if the city had changed the zoning to allow this grocery, that would have been more of an example of spot zoning. With what you have across the street, like, I think I get your point, Councilman. Should the corridor, the whole corridor there be more a long-term, potentially business corridor, particularly with the Myers operation across the street? I mean, it's industrial, but I think you make a really valid point, but I'd suggest the neighborhood needs to evolve a little more mature a little more before we know exactly what we're gonna do. You couldn't zone it all commercial and then recognize the mayor and all the houses as existing non-conforming uses, but then those individuals, they couldn't expand their house, they couldn't remodel, they couldn't change anything. So what might be more in line here is some kind of hybrid zoning or zone that would allow for both. I mean, we're having this same conversation with I've had a couple people contact me about wanting to take homes. I always think of West Sixth Street in Austin, where there's a corridor of, they're all commercial uses, but they are really just homes that have been converted to commercial use. That if we had an opportunity to do something like that, but I think we might get ahead of ourselves too much if we just go in there now and rezone everything now before we have more projects like this on the table. But I follow your point. It's never good to do projects, commercial projects, one at a time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what I'm concerned that this was rezoned when it was. I don't know when that was, obviously precludes my time, and now it seems like we're kind of just going with that it's gonna be commercial, let's make it more commercial. So,
And I follow that, but if we went down that direction, I feel like we would have a whole lot of more citizens that would be angry, because like the city manager said, then we're limiting them. If you try to make that whole corridor commercial, then they can do nothing with their houses.
And I'm about to do some remodeling, so let's not do that.
And I do think Councilman Swain's point about, clearly, if we have the same mayor for a while, something's gonna happen at that intersection with TxDOT, so that may be more of the right time when we know what permanently has happened at that intersection to talk about the use around it, because their point will be, as we've seen, their plan is to make that more of a uniform intersection that would probably avail itself for more commercial use if you had a stoplight there or a stop sign at that location. So, like I said, I think it's a good point looking down the road.
And there were the citizens that were notified were 200 feet away, right?
Yes.
So that wouldn't even, I mean, we're talking about 4 families?
We actually notified, I think it was roughly about 15 residences within the 200 feet, all the way around that. So there was a pretty good noticing of that area.
Quick question. We're gonna approve this based off of a parking lot. Is it always gonna be a parking lot? Is there
No, I think that's an important point to make. The city doesn't have conditional zoning, so we're not, the owner has shown the plan and a good faith effort to show us what we're doing, but again, we don't have a development agreement. We can't tie that to the zoning, so it's important that always with these, that when we change the zoning, it's not necessarily do all the promising they want. That's one thing we try to tell people. The owner can promise they're gonna do this or that, but the truth is they're only bound by the zoning. Once we change it, and we can't change it back.
And they can expand the building if they wanted to do that.
If it complies with the zoning, yes. I mean, it's,
So one more question, David. Why I think this is C2 over
Yes.
C1?
Yes. It's C2 zone, that neighboring lot, yes.
Can you speak to that?
How
Isn't C1 more restrictive?
C1 would be, but then you get into a spot zoning issue because C1 doesn't exist in that area. So C2 would be the logical thing to go to because there's C2 next to it. I don't know if you had any other questions or anything.
No, I'm thinking through, because just like you say, just because it's a convenience store in a parking lot now doesn't mean that it's gonna be that way in
That-
5 years,
That's correct.
so.
Thank you.
I have had conversations with that owner years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, even before, I guess, I was on council, or just was getting on council, but they were talking then about that they wanted to get that lot next door so they can expand their parking lots, but it's always been their intention to do a parking lot there, just to accommodate them.
I see frowns on folks' face. Do we need to take a field trip?
I don't
And
think
go
there's
look at it.
frowns. I mean, Councilwoman Kozlowski brings up a very valid point, where I see there's gonna be commercial is there, right? We already have. Myers across the street, and it's a great location to do that. So does it really matter? Really, if we know it's going that direction and they need a parking lot now, that it turns into something different in 5 years, it's already zoned that way, does it really matter? But I wouldn't take it right now, at this time, to try to make the whole corridor right there commercial just because of what I said. That, to me, would anger a whole lot more residents, because it totally would, lock their hands, they couldn't do anything.
I think maybe in that case, I would recommend, like you said, maybe what's the technical term, split or hybrid zoning? So you
See,
could
and I guess-
potentially do both, so.
I see this a little bit differently as, this is just a good example of slow growth, meeting the needs of the public as we grow. And so I don't see the need to rezone the whole couple of blocks that are there. I think you rezone there, fine. And then in 5-10 years, if the houses next to it are no longer there, or they get torn down, and that needs to be rezoned for commercial, then fine, you just step it in. So I'm okay with that.
And I own 3 of the houses, so I guarantee I'm not going nowhere, and, now, after that, though, I can't talk about the other folks' houses, but mine, I don't intend them to go anywhere. And I certainly don't wanna have it so that I can't do any fixing up, because they all need some fixing up to include the one I live in, so I'm just gonna be honest, I'm gonna take myself out of this, because, that hits me too hard, right there.
Well, Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance as stated.
I'll second.
Okay, so we'll start with Brazier.
Frazier, yes?
McShed abstained.
Kaznowski abstain.
Gibson, no.
Swain, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Okay, so we got 2 abstentions, so it passes. Yep. Okay. All right. You're on 5. Yeah.
Yes, okay, this is the ordinance we had a hearing about earlier having to do with the sign code. David, you want to give a couple comments about this?
These sign code changes are just brought forward in order to kind of do some simplifications, correct some errors associated with it, and give a chance to modernize to our sign standards to what other cities do, and try to streamline the language as much as possible in it. There are portions of this that loosen some requirements, there are some that tighten some requirements. And there's a staff report that goes into detail over those major changes that are with it. And also everything that's being changed, there's a cross through and underline exhibit with the ordinance. And that's all I have to say in regards to this. I'm here for any questions you may have.
This doesn't, just for the record, this won't have any effect on any existing signs, any
Correct.
existing business. Technically, there could be some cases where existing signs would continue to exist as non-conforming uses.
Correct, they become legal non-conforming.
But this action won't force a change on any sign anywhere in town.
Correct.
I do know in the one case, we're addressing a situation that I got involved in, where we, just an example of where these suggestions come from, where we, individual wanted to put up a sign, but we basically couldn't make the peg fit in the hole legislatively with our code. Although even though David and I agreed that the location of the sign, from our personal opinion, was no problem, it would have been allowed without any difficulty, but we couldn't allow it under the code, so it's just one example of something we fixed now, so that.
Correct.
That sign, that individual will be able to go ahead with that sign where they couldn't
Correct.
before, so. But there's no, I'm sorry?
Was that a commercial building or?
It was the lodge out on, they wanted to put up a new sign, and there was a problem with the adjacent property and how close, the location where they wanted to put the sign.
Correct.
Couldn't make it fit, and they didn't want to move it to a different location. But yeah, I mean, I even went out there and looked it over with them, and it was real reasonable what they wanted to do, so we've addressed, and we didn't change the code just for that reason, but it's an example of something that, when you have an experience like that, it illuminates the problem with the code. So we've changed it now, so they'll be able to put the sign. up.
Right, for example, there are other uses, like churches can go in residential. So signs, if you put a sign near a residential use, it has to be a certain square footage and non-illuminated. Well, that church may be in a residential zoning, but it's a church. So if you change it to, say, only within residential land uses, that land use isn't residential, it's a church. So it loosens the standards a little bit in that way for certain circumstances.
David,
I have a silly question. Will this impact existing business signs that are already in place?
No, insofar as is the city coming out saying, take this sign down now, no, it will not.
I'm thinking personally about my own signs.
Okay.
Oh, well, that's a different question. No, it won't have any effect on that.
And permitting of said signs, does that go through the same permitting process as we currently have?
Yes. With some of these code changes, we'll be loosening some of the standards. For example, window identification signs, and I'm talking commercial signage, not artwork or non-commercial speech. For example, window identification signs. So if you go to a business and you see the sign up there, whatever the name of business on there, right now, we have to have a permit for that. But the changes here loosen that. It just says you don't have to have a permit for that. So you'll still regulate it like we do fences, but just don't have to have a permit for it. So those are the aspects side of it where it's loosening it.
And where is it tightening up? on the restriction?
Sizes of signs. It reduces some of the sizes for permanent signs. So new signs that go up in the future are smaller, or if they're a situation where it's illegally non-conforming and the use changes, or the building is destroyed, or the sign is destroyed beyond a certain value, they have to put a new sign up. But the reason for illegal non-conforming is to allow signs that don't meet standards to exist for the life of that sign without having to change it. So the codes are written already this way, and every other city has this as well, where we realize signs or something doesn't meet a standard, but we want to allow that sign to continue its, quote, life to a period of time to where you need to do a new sign. So it's not an amalgam, it's not a amortization of signs, it's a continuation of allowing signs that don't meet standards, but at a certain time, if you change, for example, knocking a building down or changing the use in a building, it may require new signage. It gets you to the point where it allows the person to keep their old sign for as long as possible, but yet gets us to the point where we have a different type of or style of sign that's more reflective of where we want to be as a community.
I just say to Matthew's question, there's also a different overlay of requirements downtown, right? for
Correct.
signage, so,
Yeah, the fact that it's in a
controls
historic
some.
district. Yes.
I jumped through many hoops to get my signs.
And then, back to permitting,
Yes, ma'am.
one, we already have a set amount that you pay for a sign permit, correct?
Correct.
This does not change that?
This code change does not change that in any way, shape, or form.
Does the fee ordinance later change that?
It does.
Okay.
What about like a yard sale sign? So if I want to put up a yard sale sign, do I have to get a permit for that?
No.
Okay.
Even currently and with the code changes, no.
And we did have the question of the individual individual that puts up these big fancy happy birthday signs and things like that. But the key on those is to remember, it's not commercial. If it's a commercial advertisement, then you're regulated by the sign code.
Right. There's differences between commercial signage and non-commercial signage, and we exempt artwork from permitting, which this would be grouped under. And with these proposed code changes as well, it would be in a situation where we wouldn't even regard it as a sign anymore.
Like political signs.
Well, a sign, period. So,
Right.
yeah, so in other words, we would never be able to regulate it from that standpoint because it wouldn't be recognized as signage anymore. So it loosens it where I think it needs to be loosened at. But also tightens in places where I think based on what cities have done and where we need to be, tightens where it needs to be at as well. So it's a happy, in my opinion, professional opinion, a happy balance.
And what cities are you referring to?
Mostly in the Austin metropolitan area. So cities have certain standards they go by when they do certain signage. For example, just to give you an example, most cities go by ground signs, linear frontage to the roadway. We don't go by that for shopping centers, which are 5 or more units. We go by based on the gross floor area of the building, which I've never seen until I looked at our code and said, why is this like this?
Dave, let's talk, go ahead, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the fees that's in the later ordinance that will be
Yes.
applicable to this.
Yes, later on in this, there'll be fees that you'll be looking at, which will be basically to correct some of our fire fees that were not brought with the original ordinance when we did the approval of the budget. And also the signage as well will be simplified. So we're doing a lot more flat fees and we're reducing fees in that way. And the reason why we're doing that is to, basically, we're moving everything to a new permit module. And it simplifies the fee structure, makes it easier to go with that permit system.
Say that again, the sign.
The sign structure as is, it's not really in a model to fit into the new permit module. So by modifying the sign code to flat fee a lot more of the stuff and reduce some of the fees down, it simplifies it for purposes of getting it into that system and also helping with understanding of the public as
All
well.
right, so is the sign fee going up or down?
It's going down in most circumstances. So we have historic fees and our fees, and we're kind of reaching a happy medium by merging them together. So that's how most of them are.
But we still have to go through the online permitting process if we're gonna get a sign.
And has that issue?
Yes, correct. So right now with our permitting system, it's more submit your stuff to our email, download the application from online, and we do everything through email format through our iWork system. We'll be going to the My Government Online system where it's kind of an e-government self-service. People can can do the application online, pay their fees online. They can submit their information through the system. We can send them their approvals through the system. So, I mean, it's kind of a 24/7, 365 system we're going to. That's more e-government self-service type setup.
Not the convoluted one we have had.
Not insofar as the iWork system, correct.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I recognize, I think the ordinance went before a few boards as well and got input.
It went to the Historic Review Board on Amy's side of it for the historic items because they deal with the sign code regularly on their side, and they recommended approval of it.
Yeah, so anyways, I just want to thank them for that and for staff for doing this. I think it's just routine updates to things we need to be doing, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, so ordinance 5, do you have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept.
Okay, and do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joy. All right, we start with Callahan.
Callahan, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes?
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Okay, motion carries. Now, moving on to number 6. We're on chapter 44, vegetation and landscape.
Hey, David, you want to take a shot? This is simpler. We're just changing a couple of terminologies in the code that are outdated and reducing
Correct.
Is it
This is
shrubbery requirements?
correct. The only thing this is doing is, it's basically taking out shrubbing as a requirement in residential. It's basically changing a few terminologies around, and it's making a change to the code. We're starting to get redevelopment in our city as well. So by taking out the new development definition in that ordinance, we can, as the areas, as certain lots redevelop, we can make them do the tree planting. So that way it maintains our our urban canopy and our urban canopy, and basically maintains the character and kind of the greenness of the city. I think it'll help with that.
You have any questions? Discussion? Add your shrubs. You need 150 of them?
Count the parks ones too, they were planted this year.
Oh, yeah. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right. And we'll begin with Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, yes.
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes?
Kesnowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes?
Maldonado, yes. Callahan, yes.
All right, motion carries. Number 7, talk about the fees.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an update, again, to accompany the budget process we just got through. We're updating both our fees, for fire inspections and fire review, and that's, again, a third-party service that we assess fees to cover our costs, and the third-party service provider, his cost has gone up, and then some adjustments to the sign fees, as David discussed earlier.
Yeah, just the fire stuff was changed, and then, of course, the sign stuff, as I was saying earlier, to help simplify it through the new permitting system.
So was the ones in red, right? Yeah.
That's right.
It's kind of tiny, but.
Yeah, and I just want to say in this case that we, the staff's goal is to always, we try wherever we can to assess fees to covers the city's costs relative to the services provided. If, as long as it can recover those fees that way, then that's another way that we're able to keep pressure off the general fund and our taxes are down. So that's why we have to keep up with these fees, and we've been successful in doing that, I think.
Any further discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, begin with Callahan.
Callahan, yes.
Rodriguez, yes.
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes?
Kesnowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes?
Maldonado, yes.
Okay. We will be going to executive session, and it is 7:55. And we will retire. Use the restroom on the way through. 8:20, and we are back in session. And we took no action. No action was taken? We didn't do nothing.
I think I got all the announcements in, didn't I, Amy? Don't have any more? Okay, good.
I know, right?
Trying to catch somebody before they leave.
She's the only
tonight.
one left. Okay, so no announcements? Okay. Well, it's 8:21, and I call our meeting adjourned.